I was watching this YouTuber, Jean Foutal, um, and he does these deep dives into like the behind the scenes of professional sports, right?
Yeah.
And his stuff on Spanish football. Like, it really got me thinking about all the refereeing controversies they've had over the years.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's like it's always there, this tension, and it keeps coming back.
Yeah, and it feels like Real Madrid's statement was like a boiling point. They didn't just like complain. They went full on attack mode. Basta, yeah, enough is enough.
And the thing is, Real Madrid isn't the only one who feels that way, right? Other clubs have been saying the same thing. Like Atletico Madrid, for years they've been complaining about referee bias.
Totally. But Real Madrid, they're being really specific this time, calling the system endogamic and corrupt, which basically means like it's a closed shop, right? The referees just protect each other. They're even saying the whole competition is being manipulated.
Yeah, that manipulation thing, that's a big deal. Because it's not just incompetence. It implies that someone's deliberately trying to influence the outcome of matches.
And these aren't just like vague accusations, right?
Yeah.
Remember that tackle on the Real Madrid player? Everyone thought it was
Right.
a red card, but nothing happened. And then there were all those VAR decisions. It felt like certain teams were always benefiting.
Yeah, those specific examples, they become part of this bigger story, right? This narrative of bias.
Right. It's not just one bad call. It's like a pattern, and that makes you question the whole system. And Real Madrid, they're demanding big changes. They want full transparency, like even audio recordings of the referee conversations.
It's like they're saying, show me the receipts. We want to know how these decisions are being made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Real Madrid's not alone, right? Getafe, another club in La Liga, they came out supporting Real Madrid's statement, saying it's about time someone addressed this issue.
Yeah, that's important, right? Because it adds credibility. It makes it seem like it's not just one club whining. There's a genuine concern about the whole refereeing system.
Yeah, but of course, there are always people who are going to be skeptical. Some people are saying, this is just Real Madrid trying to play the system, get things tilted in their favor.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ignore Real Madrid's history, right? Since they're one of the most powerful clubs in the world. So it makes you wonder, are they really just fighting for fairness? Or are they trying to manipulate things for their own benefit?
And then there's that whole, the Negreira case with Barcelona.
Oh, yeah, that adds a whole other layer to this.
For people who don't know, it was a huge scandal. Barcelona was accused of making payments to a former refereeing official.
Right, and it raised all these questions about corruption within the refereeing system.
But now it's like there are accusations flying everywhere. It's hard to even know what to believe anymore.
It makes it really hard to tell, right? Is Real Madrid's anger just about fairness? Or is there something else going on?
It's like this game of chess where everyone's trying to outmaneuver each other. And the referees, they're the pawns in the middle.
Which makes you wonder, right, what impact is all this having on the referees themselves?
Yeah, like imagine the pressure they must be feeling, knowing that every call they make, every decision, people are going to be analyzing it, looking for any sign of bias.
It must be incredibly stressful.
Right. And do you think all this fear of backlash could actually make the refereeing worse?
It's definitely a possibility. If referees are afraid to make calls against certain teams because they're worried about the consequences, then it undermines the whole system.
It's like a vicious cycle, right? The more people cry foul, the more pressure the referees feel. And then they're more likely to make mistakes.
And that just leads to more accusations of bias.
It's like a runaway train.
Yeah, and the players, they're caught right in the middle of all this.
Right, they're the ones out there on the pitch, putting their bodies on the line.
And their careers can be affected
Yeah.
by inconsistent refereeing.
Like, think about Vinicius Jr. at Real Madrid. He's always getting targeted with these really aggressive tackles. And he's been vocal about it, saying he doesn't feel protected by the referees.
And that brings up a really important point. Player safety.
Yeah. If referees aren't enforcing the rules and protecting players from dangerous tackles, it's not just about fairness. It's about people's health.
It's about basic human decency.
Exactly. Players deserve to know they're going to be safe when they step onto the field.
And when they don't feel protected, when they feel like they're being treated unfairly, It can really take a toll on them mentally.
Right, imagine that frustration, like you're playing in a rigged game. The rules keep changing to benefit the other team.
It's demoralizing.
Totally.
And this feeling of injustice, it's not just limited to Real Madrid. Players from other clubs have said the same thing.
It feels like this whole controversy, it's like it's blown the lid off this simmering resentment.
It's exposed this deep-seated problem in Spanish football.
And it's about more than just a few bad calls, right?
It's a systemic issue.
And that needs a systemic solution.
The question is anyone willing to fix it?
That's the big question, yeah.
Yeah.
And it needs an answer, like now. The future of Spanish football might depend on it.
Okay, so we've talked about the problems, the accusations, the frustration, but what about solutions? Like, is there any way out of this mess?
Right, everyone's got an opinion, but
Yeah.
actually changing something like this in a system as, like, set in its ways as Spanish football, that's a whole other challenge.
One idea I've heard is creating an independent refereeing body.
Okay, so separate from the federation.
Exactly. The idea is if the referees aren't tied to the federation, then they won't be influenced by them or by any of the powerful clubs.
So basically you'd have a neutral group making the calls.
Right. A clear separation of powers. Decisions are made based on what happens on the field.
But logistically, wouldn't that be a nightmare? Like setting up a whole new organization.
Yeah, it would be a huge undertaking. But some people think it's worth it to restore trust in the system.
Okay, but let's say you have this independent body. How do you actually hold them accountable? Like, what happens when they make mistakes, which they inevitably will?
Well, that's where the idea of stricter accountability comes in. You need clear performance standards, reviews, disciplinary procedures.
So if a referee keeps making bad calls, or if there's a clear pattern of bias, there are consequences.
Exactly. They're held responsible for their actions.
What about, like, fan feedback? Some people have talked about incorporating that into the review process.
That's an interesting idea. Some leagues are already experimenting with it. It could be a way to, bridge the gap between the fans and the referees.
But how do you prevent it from becoming, like, a popularity contest, where the refs are just trying to please the loudest fans?
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? Finding a way to make it meaningful without compromising the decision-making process.
And then there's the whole issue of transparency. Like, Real Madrid wants access to those audio recordings of the referee conversations, especially with VAR.
Right, that's a tricky one. Some people think it would just create more controversy. Others say it's necessary for building trust.
I can see both sides. I mean, it could help people understand how decisions are made, but it could also make the referees feel even more scrutinized.
It's a tough balance, but the fact that it's even being discussed shows how much people want a more transparent system.
But even if we have all these ideas for reform, actually putting them into practice, that's going to be tough.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Anytime you try to change a system like this, especially one as powerful as professional football, you're going to face resistance.
It's like trying to turn a giant ship around.
Exactly. It takes time and effort.
And a willingness to, like, rock the boat.
The question is, do the people in power actually want to change things, or are they more interested in protecting themselves?
That's the big question hanging over Spanish football right now.
And the answer, it has implications for the whole sport.
Not just in Spain, but globally.
And this isn't just about, abstract ideas like fairness and transparency. It's about real people.
The players, the fans.
Their lives are affected by this.
We invest so much in this sport.
Emotionally, financially.
And when it feels like the game is rigged,
it takes something away.
that magic, that passion.
We need to remember that football. For all its spectacle, it's ultimately about human beings.
And the choices they make. So we've talked a lot about this whole Spanish football refereeing thing. But I keep thinking about the bigger picture, like, what if nothing changes? What are the real stakes here?
Well, the consequences could be pretty big. And not just for Spain. I think it could impact football everywhere.
How so?
Well, if people start to feel like the game isn't fair, if they think it's all about bias and manipulation, then they might just stop caring.
Right, they lose faith.
Exactly. And that could have a domino effect.
Less viewership, less money from sponsors.
Exactly.
And then there's that whole talk about a European Super League. Could this controversy push some clubs over the edge?
I mean, it's definitely possible. If clubs feel like the system is rigged against them, they might be more willing to look for other options.
So this isn't just about referees making bad calls. It's about the whole future of the sport.
And for fans, it's about protecting that feeling of magic,
And, like, we invest so much in this.
Our time, our emotions, our money, because we believe in it. We believe in the competition, the drama.
The possibility of seeing something amazing.
Right, and when that belief is gone, it's really disappointing.
It takes away from the joy of the whole thing.
And this whole situation, it makes you think about power, Who has it, how they use it.
Like that saying, money talks.
Exactly, and in sports, the people with the most money and influence, they have the loudest voices.
It reminds me of that YouTuber, Gene Futol. He's really good at showing how these power dynamics work, how they can, corrupt things.
Yeah, he's a good reminder that we can't just take things at face value.
We have to be critical, ask questions.
Exactly.
So what now? What needs to happen to fix this?
It's going to take a lot. The Spanish Football Federation, they need to actually commit to change.
Not just talk about it, but actually do something.
Right. They need to address those concerns about transparency and accountability.
I mean, the clubs need to step up too, right?
Absolutely. They can't just blame the referees every time they lose.
And what about the fans?
Well, we have a role to play too. We need to keep talking about this, demanding change.
Keep the pressure on.
Exactly, because ultimately, football belongs to everyone.
It's something we all share.
And it's worth fighting for. Hello, if you are listening to this, you may not be subscribed to the channel. Activate the bell so that they will notify you when there is a new story, and share it with the people you want. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.